to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Councilwoman Goldberg, Councilman Pagan,
Here.
Councilwoman G,
Here.
Councilman Katz, Deputy Mayor Belcher, Deputy Mayor Organ here, and Mayor Schwartz.
Here. Thank you.
Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided by resolution number 300-2024, sending a copy to the newspapers officially designated for 2025 by way of resolution number 2-2025, filing a copy in the township clerk's office and posting it on the municipal building bulletin board. And the mayor hereby directs that this statement be included in the minutes.
Welcome to the March 27th, 2025 open session budget. The Township Administration present at tonight's meeting are Jacqueline Hashman, our Township Manager, Doug Riscione, our Township Clerk, Issa Basti, our Chief Financial Officer, Kristen DeNorci, our Deputy Township Clerk, Scott Fallon, on Zoom, our Township Attorney, Ron Goodman, our volunteer cable investor. Also, we have our department heads who we'll be hearing from shortly as well. Welcome, everyone. Upcoming events. For the public's information, we are currently holding a hybrid format meeting. We have people in person and on Zoom. If our Wi-Fi at the municipal building has an issue where the Zoom meeting drops, we will aim to retrieve the connection and continue the meeting. If you haven't already signed up for the Township Alerts, please do so on our website. The Township Council will have budget meetings starting at 7 p.m. on Thursday, April 3rd and April 10th. The next televised regular council meeting is April 8th, which begins at 6:30 p.m. with public session opening at 8 p.m. Public access channels 47 and 77 are temporarily down. You can watch the meetings on Zoom, Facebook, YouTube, and a recording of tonight's meeting will be on the website tomorrow. The Youth Advisory Board Civics event, where everyone's invited to the third floor student center at the Teaneck High School this coming Wednesday at 6 p.m. It'll go from 6 to about 9 p.m. You'll meet local officials and learn how our local government works. On Monday, April 7th from 7 to 9 in our council chambers here, we'll have a community information meeting on a proposed redevelopment of 827 Teaneck Road, otherwise known as Regina's. Participation is in person, but the meeting will be streamed on Zoom. And the council did not meet in closed session tonight. With that, Mr. Clerk, I believe we're good and welfare. All right. Yes, indeed. Good and welfare. Anyone in the room? Come on up, ladies. Come one at a time, as long as you don't push each other out of the way.
Good evening, Council, Madam Manager, Lisa, my friend, and the clerk. So, I'm here as a resident of Teaneck to advocate for maximum funding of the Teaneck Public Library. Hey, I know money is tight. I mean, I looked at my 401k recently, didn't you? And you turn on MSNBC and turn it immediately off, right? But good public schools and libraries are among the leading indicators of the health of a civilization, and in particular, one that is purportedly based on democratic ideals. This is not an overstatement. We are all welcomed at a library, regardless of gender, race, ethnicity, or class. The library serves the entire community across all demographic markers. Prior to our library's closure for renovation, it was one of the, if not the, most active public libraries in Bergen County, and we all look forward to its regaining that position. I have been proud to say that our library is one of the anchors of this town. As to the capital budget a bit later in the process, I hope all decision makers will remember the promises made initially and will decide to complete phase 2 within a reasonable time frame. Tonight, Director Hun proposes an operating budget that in this inflationary climate is essentially flat. Surely the proposed budget cannot be cut any further. In fact, it is probably wise to think about increased allocations once the library is up and running, and staffing and collections have to be restored to their full strength. We urge our town manager and our council to support Director Hunn's budget as presented without further belt tightening. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Susan Mayer. I am a library patron. Whoops. I'm short. A member of the Friends and a former officer of that organization. I hope I speak for many, but I am speaking for myself in support of the library budget for the coming year. Because the building has been closed for renovations, it is easy to forget how vital a role it plays in our town. And it is continuing to do so even with staff assigned to neighboring libraries. By the way, a shout out to those staff in all the neighboring libraries. For continuing to work on behalf of our library. Despite the dislocation, the Teaneck Public Library continues to support all kinds of programming at the New Milford Public Library and other venues for children, adults, ESL learners, etc. Our town needs to support them so that there can be a seamless transition back to the library we all love. Thank you.
We're on the honor system tonight. So.
Good evening. I'm Gina Mannix. I'm a longtime resident of Teaneck and a member of the Friends. And I urge you to give your strong support to the budget that's presented for the library tonight. I can't imagine that anyone would disagree that the library is a crucial institution in our community. I think the health of a community is really determined by institutions like the library and the school system. But the library is unique in this community and in every community because it is a gathering place for everyone in town, no matter your age, no matter your religious background, whether you're a public school or a private school student, your economic status, your ethnic background. So it really is a community building enterprise. And the wide array of resources at our Teaneck Library are really mind-boggling. It's not just books, as you all know. It's all kinds of media. It's online resources. It's museum passes. It's programs for kids, for teens, for adults. It's book discussion groups. It's ESL tutoring. It's computer courses in basic computer techniques. It's just an amazing array of programs. So I urge your support. Certainly, you know, we're all looking forward to the restoration or the reopening of the library after the renovations, and I think we'll appreciate our library even more. But I echo Sandy's point about keeping in mind additional improvements, especially the bathrooms that will need to be done in the coming years, and to keep that in mind. So thank you for your support.
No? What else? Oh.
Hello, I'm Lynn Kloss. I've been on the board of the Friends of Teaneck Library for about 15 years, and I've been a Teaneck resident for almost 50 years. So I know this community, and I know the firm place that the library holds in it. And in that note, I wanted to thank all of you for your continuing support of the library. You've all, in your separate ways, been supporters. And I'm not going to call out one person or another because I know you're all strong supporters. What are you laughing about? Oh. Okay. Are you making faces? Okay. As you know, the library offers programs and services for all members of our community. They offer story time for babies, a vibrant teen program, and for adults, ESL instruction, crafts, movies, and music. In addition, as a member of the Buckle system, the Teaneck residents have access to 5 million plus items to borrow, to say nothing of digital resources and all kinds of other stuff. Shanae and her staff have lots of plans for when the library reopens for new programs and services. And of course, new plans means new money. So I'm hoping that you will continue to support the library as you have and increase your support, in fact, in this transition to the new building. So thank you very much again, and
Thank you. Clerk, anyone on Zoom? Okay, you know more, oh.
Alan Stone, Teaneck resident and taller supporter of the Teaneck Public Library. All of my children really benefited tremendously from the library. It's been a long time since I took my kids there. I was really, all my babies have babies already. So maybe I could take grandkids to the library, but I remember one of my kids showing me a book aimed at kids that let them know that cocoa beans are allowed by federal law to have rat droppings in them. I don't know, apparently 1 pound could have somewhere between 4 or 5 rat droppings, which both was very informative and very disgusting, but again, something that's very, very good to know. I don't know if the Food and Drug Administration still exists or what the current limit is, but we all hope that we can do better. I had an opportunity to look through the budget after the budget document, the budget book was released. And again, I thank the township manager for her presentation. And one of the things that I had an opportunity to look at was sewer billing and trying to understand where the numbers come from on sewer billing. I've had a chance to look through audit reports and other reports from previous years and seeing sewer billing wildly fluctuating from year to year and trying to figure out why that's happening, trying to figure out from what I read that we won't be caught up on sewer billing until perhaps next year. This is a source of money. It's money that's owed to us. It's money that we should have collected. I would have loved to have had an opportunity to hear this in a budget discussion, in a budget subcommittee discussion. I was very, very hopeful when the resolution passed to open the subcommittees, and I was very, very disappointed to have been one of the very, very few people present at the previous budget meeting when that resolution was rescinded. It was at the end of a meeting. It was not announced. There was no text available. There was no opportunity for public input. I do assume that the township attorney will advise all of us that everything that occurred with the rescission of that resolution was perfectly legal. But I think it was legal at the 4 or 5 rat dropping level. We can do better. We can show the public that what we're doing and what the work is. On Sunday, I had sent all council members a letter saying that the issues that had been raised about opening the budget subcommittees were related to notice, were related to having someone record the meetings. The only response I got was from the mayor, who indicated, thank you for your email. I don't think there was any other text. And I don't know when the budget subcommittee met, but I do believe that it did meet, and I don't think any member of the public was present. And I think that whether or not that resolution existed, the opportunity was present for this council, for the budget subcommittee, the members of the budget subcommittee, to demonstrate to the public that we really do care what you think. We can do better as a township. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stone. Anybody else? Okay. With that being said, good and welfare is closed. Any response? Go, Deputy Mayor Katz. I'll actually have a few comments and I'll jump right in. Lost CFO. Okay. Just a few comments. The budget subcommittee met on Wednesday, and the good news and bad news. The bad news is there will be a tax increase this year. The good news is there will be no cuts. That said, if you don't behave next year, we may do that. So keep that in mind. No cuts. Now let's talk about what we discussed. We discussed a few things. What we've tried to do in the past, we've done it up here, we've done it in the budget committee, is we reviewed and said, what rate do we want to be at? Well, for 8 years, we were at 0, then we were at 2, then we were at 5. I've never believed, in all due respect to the police officers, a councilman about 13 years ago, started grilling the chief at that point on the expense of the pants. And I'm like, God, that's not for me. I see how much the pants cost. That's not for me. My goal, I believe my goal was to keep that number as low as possible and agree with the council on what rate do we want to pass as a form of a rate increase, if any, to our council members. And we met with the CFO, we met with our auditor, and there were two numbers floating out there that we were able to take the 9.9 down to. One was 6.9 and one was 7.4. Is that correct? Because was 7.4, 7.49, and 6.99. So I'm tremendously impressed by that number. The CFO did an excellent job, the manager did an excellent job, along with especially our auditor, of not seeing any cuts to bring it down from 9.9 to 6.9%. And so I wanted to get some consensus around the table on that. That's number one. Number two, we were able to, she started the meeting at that 9.9, but more importantly, worse, at 19.9% for next year. And by the time the meeting was over, we were down to 14% for next year. Now, last year, we were down to 15% for this coming year, and we got down to 6.9. Those are starting numbers, but we'll continue to meet. We looked at what things we need to do this year to keep bringing it down further, and we'll continue to strive to those numbers. Primarily building, and we all know my saying, building. Those have been the biggest drivers. Let's talk about sewer. Sewer is a very good point that was brought up by the Councilman Sohn. And the issue with sewer is, unfortunately or fortunately, this was an excellent ordinance crafted by Deputy Mayor Katz years ago. Very few towns do it. Unfortunately, we rely on a third party, which is the utility company. The utility company is very sporadic with their data, and we decided last year to then stop what we were doing and build a system within our own tax billing system in Edmonds that has a sewer right on there. And that cost us 6 months. So while we did not lose the money, we're going to be double billing this coming year instead. And we hope to be caught up by next year straight through. With that said, I do not believe we can get the number down below 6.99%. As my fellow committee members know, 6.99 was a fight, not a fight per se, but an argument, a struggle with our bond counselor, with our auditor, with our CFO, and really some belt tightening on future expenditures and hoping that we don't see that large increase next year. So we wanted to soften it like that. So with that, I'll turn the floor over to my committee members if they want to report on their version of the meeting.
Sure. Can I add a little bit of color? Everything that the mayor shared was accurate. I just want to add some color around how we were able to reduce the estimated revenue or increases on the rates for future years. We had to make large estimates about what the revenues would be from these new developments. We also had to make estimates about what the sewer revenue might look like. All of these numbers were estimates, which make me very nervous. We also had to scrape every cushion we could potentially identify in this year's budget to come down from 9.9 to 6.9. And that what makes me nervous about that is something comes up that's unexpected. There is nowhere to find additional dollars. And so I recommended going up to 7.49, up 50 basis points to provide that little bit of cushion. We never want to hear a 6.99 or a 7.49% increase. It's tough. You know, it's an additional, what was the number, $400 per family or $400? So we would never want to put that burden on families. But at the same time, if something unexpected happens, we don't want to be in a place where we don't have the dollars to support to cover that. And so that's why I recommended that we consider the 749 in addition to the 699. Thank you.
I didn't realize the time usage is breaking as fast. Sorry. Are you?
Yeah. And then one other thing we discussed, which actually has to do with the library, is possibly passing the capital budget as early, or introducing the capital budget as early as the next meeting in April, because we know that you have monetary constraints now that we're coming into the end of your construction. And I can tell you, everyone who spoke and Shanae, that nobody will be happier to see the construction over than we, because we're the ones that get the comments every day. When is the library opening? When will it open? And you, of course, but everyone in town is waiting for the library to reopen, and we look forward to it as well. So we're going to see what we can do. I know that the the CFO is speaking to the auditor to see how soon we can do that. We did get a revised fire budget today, and it looks like it's much lower than the budget that we have here. I just want to wait to hear back from the CFO when he comes back from breaking his fast, because it's $100,000 lower than what we have here, and that combined with a few cuts might actually be that half a basis point, and maybe we could meet somewhere in the middle. Yeah, so
Yes, so he had a few other comments he wanted to add after the meeting, which I wait for the phone call of I found some more money. So we used to call them the Swiss accounts. Councilman Katz, do you have any comments on the 6.9 to the 7.4? I know it's not zero. Oh, you okay? Okay. Mayor Begun? Okay. Deputy Mayor?
I know, hats off to the subcommittee on the work that you've done, and to our manager and CFO. I think that, budget season is very, it's always a difficult time, because although we love our town, we have extraordinary services that are not necessarily shared services. So therefore we do, we have come, or as our residents have become accustomed to, the great services that we offer, but it's, it all comes at a cost. So just as our mayor always touts, to build, I tend to believe that grants is a way in which we really can approach certain things, going forward. And I know that, we do have a grant task force, but I really feel as if we can certainly can do as much as we can to identify proactively even more grants to really cover some of our shortfalls.
I want to comment on that. It's actually interesting. Of course, grants are great. In this situation, very interestingly, the capital budget this year, when we were looking, hey, can we cut the capital budget? And we saw a few things we wanted to cut. And what we realized was by cutting those items out, we lost grant money. So we're actually almost forced to spend to get the grant, because we don't want to lose the grant. It was great, 600,000, some huge amount of grant money. But of course, it's how much? Sorry, over $1 million. So unfortunately, we're actually forced to spend to get the grant. It's best money spent, but it's just interesting to say grants will actually cost us money, but money well spent. Probably should make a note. I don't believe there's any ramifications next year, conflicts next year with Ramadan and the budget hearings. There may be 1 or 2 meetings that we should probably just start a half an hour later, being that he is the star of the show, and it's also not fair to rush him. So it's early, but in the back end, maybe we'll just take a look at the calendar. Okay, so with that, sorry, don't want to rush. Don't rush. Okay, the fire budget, the fire budget, guaranteed.
you had sent us a revised budget for fire.
Yes.
Is it really $100,000 less than what we had before?
Did the formula mess up again? Let's find out.
Sandy, did you get my check? Did you get my check?
I've got to go home.
So Deputy Mayor Organ, the number you're asking me, so the request was 642,210, correct? Is that what you're looking at? Okay, what number do you have?
In the book, what you gave us, the request was 675,910. And what you sent us today, and the manager approved 675,910, but what you sent us today, the manager approved 576,725. Is that a cut?
The 576 is correct. Yes, that would be, the decrease was in new employees.
Does that lower the actual budget, or was that just not?
No. So the request was for 642,210. The manager and I, when we put together the book, came in at 576,725. It's still an increase from last year of 165,246. So it's okay. So
Is what's in the book calculated into the budget, or is what you sent us today calculated into the budget? Did we just find $100,000 or no?
no. So
Okay.
whatever is in the book is accurate. There was one formula that was off. That's all I was correcting. It's a typo, not a change. Correct. Oh, that was a discussion I missed. No, but I mean, the manager and I are all ears. So what's the
Two numbers on the table.
yeah 699 and 749.
749.
Okay, correct.
749.
Trying to say there's some more potential. Real conversation with Council Gina and myself because. Sorry, I apologize. You and I had spoken afterwards about to potentially be some more cushions, which may make Councilwoman G feel better because her only reasons for the 7.49 to my 6.99 were more cushion based and comfort based, not anything particular. So is there anything? I can see that face is.
I mean, the more you go down, the less you have for next year, right? So I don't think any person in my position would say, like limbo, the lower you go, the better. I would just caution that, again, it's a domino effect. Whatever you cut from this year, you have less for next year.
Okay, that's not helping me. Okay, got it.
When you say you have less for next year, you mean in terms of reserves?
For example, it depends how we want to do it, right? So I was working with the auditor, we had advised that there are some potential revenues you can increase. There might be another option where we can decrease some appropriations as well. But if we really, on the seesaw, decrease the appropriation, you have a little bit more cushion to go. You could, it's a work of art. You could still go to 699 with one way, and you could still go to 749 the other way. So, I mean, depending on what the majority wants to do as a percentage wise, give us the tools, give us that number and responsibly, we'll get you there as responsibly as possible.
We're going to start the meeting with the.
Good evening, Council and Teaneck residents. Tonight we welcome Chief Andrew McGurr, Deputy Chief Seth Kriegel from our Police Department, Chief Joseph Berchtold from our Fire Department, Shanae Hunn, our Library Director, and Scott Salmon, our Township Attorney on Zoom. This evening, we will begin our budget review with these departments so we can outline and answer any questions in reference to their operating budget. I was going to have Chief McGurr present first, but I saw the Friends of the Library were here. So Shanae, if you'd like to start, I did switch gears a little bit because they were here and they just exited. So if you'd like to come up and present your budget first.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Before we start the meeting, I left a renovation progress report at everybody's desk. So I'm not gonna go over everything, but it kind of outlines why there's a delay and what we're doing right now, what activities have been happening at the library while we're closed. So the library project, we were hoping to reopen in September, but due to the abatement and delays with it, and when we did abatement, it kind of came with more work need to be done. So we found more work. So it added more time to our completion date. So we're looking at now at the end of October, if I'm positive, and there's no other hiccups after this. But the second page, you see some of the painted walls, and that's what we're doing right now. A lot of supplies are arriving, and we are trying to make our archival space downstairs with the stack room. So those pipings in the basement area that is not in use, it was used for old heating system that were actually framing to hide those pipings and to make it more safe for our residents. And it's shaping up a little bit, but we are far behind our schedule at this point. The budget this year, it's based on my primary goal right now is to reopen the library successfully before the end of this year. And my goal is that, and I thought my operating is pretty much minimal at this point. We're doing core services, and what we can do, we cannot really buy the same amount of books that we used to buy, but we are looking to reallocate those amount of money for our digital collections so that I actually see a high uptick in our all our digital services at this point. Hoopla, for example, it's a service that we pay per use because there's no wait time for that services. The Hoopla, actually, we hit multiple times our daily limits in January and February. So we are looking the trend and see if we need to increase those monthly budget for those services. And our bestseller digital copies are, the waiting list is pretty long. So we're trying to buy more copies to accommodate our patrons' needs, and they meet the demand at this point. Last year, 3 full-time staff member and 7 part-time staff members left. So my plan is before reopening, I need to reassess my staffing needs, and then we'll probably need to hire more staff members to open the library. At this point, we do not have enough staffing to reopen. But instead of doing one-on-one swap, I want to reassess everybody's work responsibilities and see the need where it is essential to have the staff members to be hired and trained. So I'm also considering, I need to discuss it with the board members, but I'm considering doing restructuring of the library staff and see if we can run the library more efficiently. Also, one of my plans this year is I like to start redoing our website to be ADA compliant. We have it until April 2027, but I'd like to get a head start on that one while my staff members are working at other library locations. Some other libraries are already got complaints on that one, so I really want to work. We put at the footer of our website, we put a notice right now, but I don't think it's enough. We have to be fully compliant by April 26, 2027. Our contract, luckily, the Buckles bill, which is our biggest spending in our budget, it's only $200 more than last year, which is a good news. The reason is we had a lot of collection in our library. And before the renovation started, we weeded out a lot of our collections, and some of the charges are based on the amount of items we have in the cataloging. So that, I think, reduced it down because the entire Buckles bill is going up, and then ours is only going up $200, which is pretty much the flat budget for us. Programming is continuing for children, families in New Milford, and we are doing some adult programming, this council chambers in person on Fridays twice a month, and some other programs are offered virtually. The summer reading program this year will be all virtual. I noticed that analyzing the library use right now, majority of our patrons are going to Bergenfield or Bogota, and the New Milford Library is the third most used library at this point. And I figured if we're doing just in-person summer reading program at New Milford, I figured we're kind of excluding big majority of our kids who cannot get to New Milford. We're gonna run it a little bit differently, hoping that many people can still participate our summer reading programs. This is my 4th year in Teaneck. And over the past 4 years, the library operating expenditure has been decreasing. I don't know if anybody noticed. 2021, the total expenditure for the library was $2.9 million. By 2024, last year, it dropped to $2.7 million. This is despite the rising costs in books, database, supplies, and benefits. I am committed to optimizing operations with the limited resources available. Thank you.
Thank you, Shanae. I'd also like to mention your capital items.
Yes.
If you'd like to share them with the council.
So we somewhat anticipated abatement when we were beginning the process of renovation, but we did not know how much it was going to be actually costing to do the abatement. And it actually went over pretty significant amount, almost $200,000. So at this point, I need extra funding to complete the renovation. So hopefully that is approved. Also, another item is libraries, phone lines and security cameras. So we actually wanna, I think it's important to have a proper working, high quality security cameras because things happen, accidents happen, incidents happen at the library, and I think it's safe for staff and residents altogether.
Thank you, Shanae. I'd like to mention that Shanae, I commend her. You know, during this project, we've come across some hurdles, and Shanae has navigated those hurdles very professionally. She's come to my office with the abatement that had to take place. It did give us an over 100-day delay, which we are going to work through and hopefully open this library, like she said, before the end of the year. But your attention to detail, I do recognize, and you're doing a great job. Council, do you have any questions for Shanae?
I do actually. So thanks for saving us money. For next year, we have another $20,000 in there to do the bathrooms. Is there any savings to us if we put that in capital for this year and have them do the downstairs bathroom while they're already working in the building and the library's closed?
I need to talk to the architect. When we started the preliminary work for this renovation, those auditorium and bathroom was not included. So that means to include that into current renovation, I don't know if it's possible in terms of timeline. That means I may not be able to complete the
open.
renovation, yes, this
Okay.
year, yeah.
What will they have to shut down the downstairs when they do the bathroom?
Well,
or-
my plan was I finished the first phase of the library renovation and then open the library and then apply for grant
For
to
the-
renovate the
for the rest.
bathroom.
Okay.
Yes. And then not shutting down the library while we're open, we may close the downstairs only during the construction. That was my plan.
Thank you so much for your presentation, very informative. One of the things I noted in your discussion was about the digital resources that you're really looking to bring on board. Do you find any ways in which we would have cost savings as a result of going from, to digital from, hard copies of things that we
So a lot of people think that digital copy is cheaper somehow, but it is not true. Digital copy is a lot more expensive than actual print copy. So one digital copy, usually it's not like we're purchasing copyright per se. So then it comes, when we purchase an ebook, it comes with 24 checkouts. When it's done, we have to rebuy it. The price of ebook is average $75 right now versus to $30 for hard copy books. And audiobooks is sometimes more expensive. It either expires within 2 years or it only gives us 24 checkouts. That's how industry is working right now. It's a big issue for us because the demand is very high, but the price is not really comparable to the print items.
Sure, I understand what licenses
Yeah,
can
license
be
issues. Yeah.
an issue.
Mhm.
My second question is regarding grant opportunities. Do you feel as if we could do more when it comes to grants? Do you see grants that we're perhaps not really tapping into that we could the library could benefit from?
At my previous library, I renovated the library bathroom and the door system to be ADA compliant using the CDBG grant. So that was what I was thinking because our bathroom downstairs is not ADA compliant. So that was my plan to use those grant funds.
Thank you.
Okay, Thank you, Shanae.
Thank you.
Council, just so you know, I am looking for approval for $507,220. It's the same budget that Shanae presented last year. So her budget remained flat for this year as described. Thank you, Shanae, for your
Thank
time.
you so much.
Next, we have Chief McGurr and Deputy Chief Kriegel from the Police Department. If you could please come forward.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, Manager. Thank you for having me tonight.
Chief, not to interrupt, Council, we're referring to tab 5, page 60 for the Police Department budget for your reference. Go ahead, Chief. I'll also just reference last year, the Police Department's 2024 adopted budget was $357,194. And this year they are requesting $476,876, to which I am requesting approval in the amount of $451,426. Go ahead, Chief.
Thank you. The proposed 2025 operating budget and capital budget for the Teaneck Police Department has been created to achieve operational objectives and to attain long-term goals. Consideration has been given to the anticipated workloads, required personnel, and equipment needs. Only items necessary and mandatory to effectively execute the police mission have been included. We have an authorized staffing contingent of 97 sworn officers and a current complement of 94 sworn officers. In 2025, 9 officers, 1 civilian dispatcher, and 4 clerks will be eligible for retirement. We are unable to project how many of these officers or civilians will actually retire during 2025. We request that all retiring personnel be replaced expeditiously. Funding has been budgeted for pre-employment screening and related equipment for replacement officers. In addition, we respectfully request a staffing level of 100 sworn officers in 2025 to include the creation of positions of an additional officer in community policing, an additional officer to assist with body-worn camera redaction work, and an additional officer in the traffic bureau to increase community relations and the department's overall effectiveness in addressing traffic-related issues. Actually, before I go any further, there was something I would like to bring to council's attention, something that we have for the month of April. In autism awareness, we created a patch that you'll see officers all wearing during the month, as we did in October with breast cancer awareness, where they have the pink badges. And we also have souvenir patches that we had made to, again, bring attention to autism awareness and for families that would like some attention.
Thank you.
And also, in preparing this budget, one of the things I did is speak with my captains and with the deputy chief, and we spoke about the changes that have happened with our department and in law enforcement in general over the years. Each year, we talk about how much has increased and what we do now as opposed to what we did 5 years ago, 10 years ago. And Captain Ferrante prepared, going through the different divisions of the department, 4 pages of highlights of things that we do now that we didn't do before. Training alone is a whole page of new types of training that we have to do. So it's just, it's something that we sit back and don't realize until you start putting it down, how much we have to do now. Body-worn cameras alone, the footage that creates is just hours and hours of requests that we get from Oprah for the officers to try and redact. And we're behind a couple months on that right now just because of the volume of requests that we're getting. We are short in that respect, and we have to find a way to get additional personnel to help out. But we have Sergeant Apreda in there doing that function now. The ID officers try and help him as well. But the ID officers are very busy with other functions to include firearms applications. Just this past year, I had over 900 applications come across my desk for approval. It's a very, very busy function. That number is astronomical compared to what it used to be. There's multiple different functions that we do. Community policing, that over time just kind of morphs into handling a little bit of everything. We have the Arrive Together program that we are working with the Bergen County on, where they're overseeing that program and working closely with them. We have a drone program that we're going to be putting out very shortly that they're overseeing. The Blue Envelope program, also dealing with individuals with autism, is something that they're overseeing as well, getting us on board with that. Our traffic division, as many people are aware, they constantly are doing traffic surveys, car seat inspections, overseeing construction sites, and dealing with complaints, addressing traffic-related issues throughout the town. And patrol, more checks that they do now as a level of threat rises and lowers. We're constantly increasing what we do on a daily basis to ensure the safety of the public. And the reports that they do, the amount of time it takes to do stuff now, although everything seems like it goes more paperless, it's more time consuming. There's more restrictions or more steps that are put in place over time by the Attorney General's office, the prosecutor's office, and what we have to do paperwork-wise to document everything and review everything, whether it be use of force incidents, body-worn camera, random reviews. There's just a lot more time and effort that goes into everything that we do. So in that regard, that's just something I want everybody just to have in mind. I can provide more information on that at another time if you like. But when we talk about increasing staffing, it's not do the same with less people. It's, we're constantly having to do more and more with the people that we have. So as such, each year we come forward and try and request additional staffing. But this is what we're trying to do, is keep up with what we do, provide the services that we have always provided, and keep Teaneck safe, happy, and up to date.
Thank you, Chief. I'd like to go through some of your sub-accounts, and you have some increases in some of them that I'd like you to describe to council as to why they went up. Looking at sub-account 213, we saw an increase under machine maintenance of about 68.3%. Could you give us an overview as to why?
Yes, three of the items here are just increases in annual fees. LawSoft, which is our CAD RMS program, went up by 1,000. VCS POS software, which is for scheduling and payroll, works with ADP. That went up by 540. We've been using that for over a year now. All Traffic Solutions, that went up because we added a third traffic analyzer, again, to deal with all the different traffic surveys that we're being asked to complete. But the big items are all new items this year. Veritone redaction, which is $5,000, that we began using last year for the body-worn camera redaction. It helps to speed up the process. It's a software that Sergeant Apreda uses. We paid for it last year when we started using it partway through the year with forfeiture funds, but now it's an annual fee that we'll have to pay, but it does help out quite a bit with his function. Paladin drone and the docking station, those two items are both service fees that are annual fees for that program. One deals with just the drone itself, the software that enables us to operate it effectively throughout the town, and the docking station, which is going to be mounted on the roof of our headquarters. It's an automatic docking station such that we'll have the ability to just launch and have it come back at any time without having to physically go outside and set it up each time. Number 18 on the list, Motorola integration, $8,772. What that does is that's a service fee for the cameras that are in the cars. The car cameras can act as license plate readers with this software. So whatever they capture while the officer's driving around, they act as license plate readers because we no longer have the ones that are mounted on the cars themselves. And the last one, police app marketing for $1,500. Yes. The in-car cameras in the police car that record in the front? Yes. Correct. Yeah, the ones that were mounted outside were not holding up. I believe they're getting damaged or just not because they're exposed to elements on the outside of the vehicle. So with this software, it's I think $500 or $550 per camera for the annual fee to have it operate as a license plate reader while it's being operated. Not the same, no. It is obviously limited to what it captures in front of the vehicle, whereas the other one had cameras that went, more of a 360 kind of an angle. And police app marketing component, that is for advertising opportunities, employment opportunities in our department, such as our dispatching, officer openings. It's a program that accesses social media and gets information out there in ways that we haven't before.
Thanks, Chief. Also jumping down to sub-account 244, communications maintenance and 911 dispatch, we saw an increase of 87.07%. Can you please explain to council?
That was 244?
244, yes.
So one of the things we have here is the portable radio replacement program. We have $15,000 in there to replace portable radios. As council is aware, we are trying to go to a digital radio network. Over time, like any of our equipment, we have a plan for replacement each year. The old radios or the current radios that we're using cost approximately $1,500 a piece. The new radios that we're looking to go to are going to cost over $5,000 a piece if we get to the digital network as we are planning to and hoping to. So $15,000 was originally put in there, which would give us approximately 10 radios for the existing radios. We have to keep up with them. It's one of the things that gets damaged. The portable radios on people's bodies, they get banged around a lot more than most equipment. So that was what originally that was for 15, that would give us about 10 radios. Now that would be about 3 radios a year. And the other thing that was added there, number 7, is a bit optimistic, but it's an anticipation of if we are able to get onto the county network, approximating a number for what it might be for an annual service fee. We're trying to allocate a certain amount of money for a third of the year of what we anticipate we might have to pay if we are able to get on that. So again, being optimistic, I'm hoping that we do get on that system and that this would be what we would need to pay for this year.
Great, thank you, Chief. Also jumping down to sub-account 270, ammunition and armory supplies. We saw an increase of $16,000 or 33.44%. Can you give us a reason for that?
Yes, the ammunition is constantly going up. So one of the things with our department, and as one of the larger departments in Bergen County, we have officers on loan to different task forces, specialty units. There's the SWAT team for Bergen County. It's a regional SWAT team made up of officers around the county. We have 2 officers on there. And also the RDT, which, as we have seen, they come out and they do protection details. You see them in the malls at times during the holidays. They look very similar. They're equipped very similarly, but they use different weapons, and the ammunition that they use is a bit more expensive for the long guns. Ammunition in general has gone up, but with them, with the qualifications, it has gone up. And this year also, as we were trying to migrate to new handguns, the 9mm, there is a certain amount of familiarization training that every officer will have to do that is going to be more than just the twice-a-year qualifications we have to do. So we are expecting to go through a bit more ammunition this year than normal with that qualification.
Great. Also under sub-account 280, special investigations, we saw an increase of 140%, even though it's only $2,800. Can you just explain to us what that entails?
Yes, as investigations are getting more and more technology driven, this deals with fees that we have to pay to cell phone providers to access information off of cell phone towers when trying to identify suspects on criminal cases. It's what we call a cell phone tower dump, where they put in information. So we have crimes that occur at different times, different dates, different locations. We can try and triangulate what number was used at the same locations, at the same dates and time on those different tower dumps doing this. So it is something that we are seeing more and more that we're having to do. It is very effective. Our officers have been very proactive with it, and it's something that we may see go up in the future, but this is, each time it's costing us a certain amount of money, and it's been paying dividends.
Great. Chief, did you want to go through your capital items and explain to the council what we have listed there?
Sure.
We have our portable radios, replacement rifles, police cars, and our surveillance vehicle.
Yes, so again, the portable radios, the mobile radios, this is something that I had spoken with council before. Again, we're trying to get onto this network. The infrastructure in Teaneck is falling apart. It's not reliable. Weather conditions affect it too much, and we have times where we just can't hear clearly what is going on. It is and has been a main priority for us to improve our communications for years. It's just getting worse every year. I know members of the union are concerned for the officer's safety with these calls. We're concerned with being able to provide police services for the town as effectively as we need to. And if we're able to get onto the county network, and the difference in what you hear on the radio alone sounds like somebody's sitting right next to you, as opposed to staticky and broken up communications that we're dealing with now. It is more expensive, with these radios, as I said, with the portables alone. This cost would cover 60 car radios, 120 portable radios, a couple pieces of equipment we need for our dispatch center for them. But I feel that this would be one of the best things we can do to improve the conditions of our department at this time, and would be for a long time. You know, we are just not able to communicate as well as we really should be able to. The second item, the 58,000, is to replace aging rifles. Again, these are rifles that are used by officers in our department as well as the officers that are on loan to, or not on loan, but work with those specialties units. The ones we have are aging. The newer weapons have more effectiveness as far as range and penetration ability. 15,000 for landscaping improvement. We have a local contractor, same business that has worked on Cedar Lane in town, Lamone, that has come over and looked at our building, and we're looking to try and improve the outlook or the appearance on the outside of our building. I know we rely on DPW for just about everything under the sun, as does everybody, and you know, they're spread very thin. And this is something I think that we could do to take it off their load and you know, just get the outside just looking better than it has. You know, it's a nice building, just outside is just looks a bit disheveled. In that regard, we've also requested a $1,500 kind of a maintenance in our operating budget for the same company to come by just a couple times a year to upkeep what's out there so that it doesn't fall to the condition it is now. And then number 15 is police cars. Again, that's to give us 8 police cars for this year. You know, during COVID, we, like all of the departments, had issues getting vehicles. It was a big problem for a couple of years. Even up until this last year, where we had to use forfeiture funds to purchase 7 vehicles. The 3 parking enforcement cars, 3 of the Ford Explorers, and the transit van was all forfeiture money to purchase those cars and upfit them, which came at a substantial expense. We need to have a regular rotation of vehicles. The amount of mileage our officers put on them, you know, unfortunately, there are a number of accidents that occur throughout the year. As you know, we take steps to try to avoid that, but it's inevitable when you have cars operating 24 hours a 7 out there in traffic, responding on calls. So in order to maintain a reliable fleet, we need to have a rotation of cars. I would almost defer to the DPW to have Glenn come up here and tell you, because when I talk to him about the cars, he just kind of cringes a bit. But we're at the point where we have to double people up sometimes in the cars because we don't have enough patrol cars to put everybody out. And finally, $35,000 to purchase a new surveillance vehicle. We like to rotate the surveillance vehicles every couple of years, sell the one that we have, which would offset, I think, some of this or bring us down to that number. But we need to have new vehicles every so often so it's not the same one that people get used to and maybe start to identify.
Thank you, Chief. Appreciate it. I'd like to reiterate what Chief was mentioning about the vehicles and you know the program that we've been doing on an annual basis. We did have a conversation on how many vehicles he would need for this year and to keep that program running to maintain your fleet. So we did keep it in our capital. I am supportive of that, knowing that I have a little more information on the status of some of the older vehicles that we can't actually utilize right now and have to use for other reasons. So I appreciate you educating me a little more on that. Also, I look forward to our upgrade to our radios. I know we've all been getting more and more educated, and I look forward to hopefully getting those for the police department. Being alongside Chief, I was actually at a demonstration, and the radio actually wasn't working, and I was standing next to him, and I actually witnessed how it went out, and the communications were not sufficient. So we look forward to supporting you and getting those radios for the department. Council, do you have any questions for Chief?
And this is going to be a question for you or the chief. Do you feel we are really optimizing all that we can do when it comes to grants? Because I know there's a lot of capital improvement, in terms of, equipment, radios, cars, et cetera.
I have been working very closely with Sarah from Millennium Strategies. I have been upping our meetings with her to optimize our grant opportunities. But as you can tell in our capital budget, once we apply for these grants, we now have to, they get added to our total, and we have to leave that amount in our capital budget. So I know, Chief, whenever we get grant opportunities, Captain Tesser and yourself
Yes,
do
and-
review them. So go ahead,
And,
Chief.
and one of the things we have found working with Millennium is that there are a lot less grants for law enforcement than there are, say, for volunteer fire departments, because so many departments are volunteer. There's not many out there that would apply to radios. We're in a situation now where the county executive is opening the door, say, for us to, he's considering the opportunity for us to join on their network for a fee. It's something that we haven't been, hasn't been an opportunity for us before. But their network would well encompass this town and some. Our coverage would be tremendous for here based on where they have their repeaters already set up for their network. And the grant process is very long. But again, we've talked to them quite a few times about any opportunities, and there's very few for police departments because they're all paid departments. There's more grants that are available, say, in the fire field, because again, a lot of departments are volunteer.
The technology is really exciting in 213. The drones are very exciting. I know that as you have different investigations going on, and then you actually catch people or find things. We get very excited when we see the result. So looking forward to you using that. We've noticed the campaign that you have going on social media to hire now. So that's also very exciting. Is there a way to hire civilians to do some of the work, some of the things that officers would be doing? Is there any room for civilians to do any of that?
With some of the work we have going on, say with the redaction work, not redaction, but the expungement. Yeah, the expungement work that was done on, after marijuana got legalized, I think we had a list of 1,000 cases that had to be expunged, which is a lot of work to be done. We have one of our civilian staff doing that full time, on top of some other tasks that she does. With the cameras, it's dealing with the redaction work on the cameras. There's different things as far as sensitivity, as far as who can see what, who can hear what. We have a sergeant doing it because if the sergeant sees something that needs to be brought to our attention, it is done so. There's also training things that come up, whether it be, new officers that need to be told how to do something that might be they haven't seen before, but the sergeant picks up on that and forwards information to the correct divisions to make sure that corrections are made.
I'm bringing it up not so much as a cost savings, but because it's hard to hire, and then there's the training involved in getting someone on the road and getting someone into the department. But if there's work that has to be done that someone else could do, and it would be easier because they would be focused on that, I was just wondering if it might be easier to give certain tasks where you could just train a civilian. That was the reason, and not wait to get an officer on the road if that's been a challenge. And then just a suggestion, and then going to the radios, I hope that the county executive allows us onto their frequency. We certainly want the officers to be safe, and we understand where the union's coming from, and I hope that's something that can be done sooner rather than later. The cost in here, the entire cost in capital, that could be, if that money was in forfeiture, the forfeiture fund, that could be taken out to pay for this because it would be the first year and not maintenance. So,
The entire amount,
yeah, that's in capital.
that would be,
It's about 1.1.
yeah, I'm not sure if we have enough to cover all of that, and if we did, it would really,
Drain it.
it would drain it, and the forfeiture account we use for different things throughout the year. Our operating budget is very low from the size department we have as a result of us covering a lot of different expenses. Like I said, 7 vehicles in the parking lot this past year was all paid from there. The handguns that we're getting for the department is all coming from there. So we've purchased quite a bit, and kind of talking about having a little bit of a buffer, we do
Yeah.
like to have a certain amount in there. So I don't want to cut it too tight if we can. I mean, obviously we can use some of the forfeiture for it, absolutely. And it is, like I said, a priority. So, whatever we can do to try and move forward with the radios, I think we need to.
We could maybe split the baby. We could pay for the cars and, okay, we can talk.
But as far as the civilians as well, as you may remember, we had Officer Danny Garcia, and Officer Mark Edamelli
They came
both
back.
come back, work 6 months at a time after retirement to assist with backloads in the firearm application investigations because they were well versed in how to do it. So yes, there's times where we have certain functions, we will do that.
Okay, thanks.
I have a question about the firearm applications. You said they're up substantially. Like how much higher were they this year versus historically?
This past year, I think we ended up receiving, might be off a little bit, about 750 applications.
And typical is
Typical is probably in the fours.
so almost double. And do you know why? What's been the cause? Is it sort of the
I
unrest
can't
that's been going on in
I
town,
can't
or?
speak to the exact mindset of people that apply. I mean, it can be political activities going on in the world. It could be anything going on outside of Teaneck that makes people feel that they should get guns. If they feel there may be restrictions coming, I'm not sure. But
Okay, thank you.
Deputy Chief. Yeah, I do have. Yeah, with regards to, actually, the Deputy Chief just brought to my attention, some of the grants that we do put in for. And it has offset some of our expenses with enforcement. So we have a distracted driver grant, pedestrian safety grants, but traffic enforcement grants totaling $51,250 last year. So, we do explore grants. I know we put in from all the time. I know the traffic just submitted something yesterday for next year already. I think it was for the pedestrian safety grant. Oh, yes, and the pop-up party grant, which was 39,000. I think it was about 39,000, which we used to purchase new batons, helmets, and shields for officers.
We've always discussed, so in the past years, you've always mentioned, I have guys out on assignments, but we didn't get access to the forfeiture funds. It actually seems like the forfeiture funds are actually a nice source of revenue, far exceeding probably the cost of putting the guys out there. Are there other opportunities like that to maybe hire 10 more cops and get $10 more million back, or?
That other towns are doing that. Other towns are hiring people to be able to put people on loan because these agencies, they work on federal cases, large seizures, and every agency that has somebody involved gets a portion of whatever is seized. And based on the involvement of your officer, you might get more than others. I mean, Teaneck's location is ideal for these task forces because of our proximity to New York City, the major highways that go through, the hotels, you name it. There's a lot of, activity that can come this direction or is already taking place here. Our officers get involved in the cases. We've had people on loan since I was a sergeant, and they rely on us to give them good people. We've had a good track record with the DEA and with Homeland Security, so our officers perform well there. We see the results here.
If there's anything more we can do to get those, I mean, those are literally a grant, so let us know if we could boost that. And I mean, I guess you're asking for more guys, so in effect go there, but we're also kind of hiring also. That
right now, yes, we're down. We have, like I said, 94 officers presently. We have one officer that indicated an upcoming retirement July 1st. So that put us at 93. And we're in the process of right now doing background investigations, hoping to have 4 officers to put us at 97 for the upcoming class. Do you have anything else? Oh, yeah. So the deputy chief is just bringing up what we talked about with the radio system and going on to the county system. So we had gotten a quote from Goosetown as to what it would cost to just create our own infrastructure, which was about $1.2 or $1.4 million to create an infrastructure that we, the township, would be responsible for upkeep. If anything happened to it, we'd have to have our people come out and fix it, just like we're doing now. This other system that the county has in place already, we would be paying a fee to use it, and they would be responsible for the upkeep. Any problems with it, they would be taking care of it, and that cost is spread out across the county.
Thank you, Chief. Appreciate
thank
it. I would also like to mention our pedestrian safety campaign that the police department has been actively working on. We are also going to continue that the rest of the year, working with Easy Ride, and hopefully making the township a little bit safer with our pedestrian crossings. Also to mention, your overtime, I know it's been the same since 2017, 600,000. It has not gone up this year. I know you had some reimbursements, and stayed within that amount, even though, a lot of demonstrations last year, were up over $110,000. I know this year, this quarter, Chief and I spoke, he's over $11,000 in overtime costs thus far this year. So he is managing the overtime, keeping us all safe. And I commend you for your professionalism and organization of all the officers for our recent demonstrations. So thank you very much.
Just to be clear, the demonstrations do put us over. I was taking
Yes.
that up, but just absent the demonstrations, counting the reimbursements we get for those grants, reimbursements we get for overtime from the DEA and Homeland Security, as well as the Richfield Park fireworks that we send officers to. And there's 4 large events that the town sponsors that we end up having to pay a substantial amount of overtime for officers to be there for that. But outside that, we end up coming in under our budget without those involved.
Thank you for clarifying.
And also just the demeanor of the officers has been wonderful. We watch them interact with the community, and they're really so pleasant, and it's really nice to see. So thank you. And for your
It's
leadership.
the pants. Thank
It's
you.
totally the pants.
I thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have our Fire Chief, Chief Joseph Birchtold, present to review the details of his 2025 operating budget. Chief, can you please come forward? Last year, the fire department, their 2024 adopted budget was $411,479. This year, the 2025 budget request is for $675,910, to which $250,000 for dispatch services from Hackensack is included in the increase of their budget. This will be our first full year with these services, to which things are going very well. I am requesting council approval for the amount of $675,910. Looking at sub-account 240, unless Chief, you wanted to speak first, or
Yes,
did you want to do
if
some
you don't mind,
sub-account?
Manager.
Go ahead, no problem.
Good evening, council, mayor, manager, department heads. I'm your Fire Chief, Joseph Berthold, residents watching from home. I want to thank you for your continued support throughout the previous year, but at the same time, ask you to continue to proper staff and fund the Teaneck Fire Department to allow us to provide the best protection and safety to our residents. As I've said in the past year, the Teaneck Fire Department is one of the cheaper, more efficiently run fire departments in Bergen County. And I would be remiss if I didn't say that the personnel that work for the Teaneck Fire Department are probably the best in the business. I have to admit, it's not easy standing up in here in front of you, talking about the Teaneck Fire Department. I've watched many of my predecessors before ask for equipment, funding, and support. I also do not want to let the firefighters and the residents down when I try to convey the importance of a properly staffed and funded fire department. At one point in 1970, the Teaneck Fire Department was staffed with 127 members. Somewhere in the 80s, that number dropped to 107. And later in 2009, it was dropped to its current table of organization of 93. As I stated last week, that number is not always filled. And due to medical leaves, sick leaves, family leaves, injured on duty requests, that number generally tracks much lower throughout the course of the year. And definitely falls below the 91 uniformed firefighters. On April 1st, 2005, the fire department will be short 7 firefighters, and that does not include the 4 in the academy currently. Last year, we started the year 4 short and dropped even further as the year went on. The NFPA and a lot of other organizations have done studies for residential structure fires, and they recommend 20 firefighters is truly an important number for a fire department in a small fire in a residential house fire. However, most of the days, the Teaneck Fire Department is only staffed with 15 firefighters on duty. This is also our minimal level of staffing. Thankfully, due to our career neighbors of Englewood and Hackensack, we can generally have that 20 number of firefighters on the scene within the first 10 minutes. That 20 firefighters on the scene of a residential structure fire, and this is a residential house we're talking about, within those 10 minutes of a fire will help to ensure that the victims are rescued, the fire is contained and the fire will not spread to the neighboring structures. We are very fortunate enough to have these two career towns that bring 8 members in 7 to 10 minutes when requested. Unfortunately, due to the growing demand of service, costs, and everything else, we do see a huge decline in our volunteer partners that also support us. We do welcome them when they arrive, if they arrive. Through my years of service, I watched the Teaneck Fire Department shrink in size and watch the equipment age as well as the buildings grow in town. When I was first hired, the town was very proud to open its first brand new firehouse in many years, in 1990. It's actually hard to believe that a career department of that size was replacing a wooden barn that they were currently using as a firehouse. Back then, the plan was to build after that a new police station, town hall, community center, DPW, and eventually a fire headquarters. In fact, the field across the street from fire headquarters, which once stood a school and then a community center, was promised as that property. It has long since been sold to a school. Fire headquarters is 83 years old. It's outdated. It has asbestos, water leaks, mold, lead problems, and unfortunately no longer fits our modern fire apparatus. And it does not provide a cancer-free work environment. In 2024, the Teaneck Fire Department responded to 5,951 emergency calls for service, ranging anywhere from fires, gas leaks, emergencies, water leaks, rescue, extrications, and emergency medical calls. The men and women of the Teaneck Fire Department work very hard for this community every day to provide the best quality and safe service to our residents under some very unique conditions. They struggle each day with equipment issues, repairs, aging apparatus, and fleet. Some of our fleet is 30 years old, and we struggle to keep it in service. Our buildings are also aging and range anywhere from 35 years, which was that new station built in 1990, to 83 years, which is a fire headquarters. I am very proud to stand up here and represent those hard men and women that work for the Teaneck Fire Department. They work extremely hard every day for you. I also want to thank you and would be not remiss for the new engine and new ladder that is on order and we hope to see at the end of 2026. I have a couple questions. Can anyone tell me where most fires happen? Believe it or not, I'll answer for you. Most fires happen in 1- and 2-story residential structures. Teaneck has about 11,064 residential properties. Out of that, also Teaneck has 67 apartment buildings, roughly, or on average, 381 commercial properties, and 12 industrial properties. Do we know what the #1 cause of structure fires are? Men, women, and children. What is the primary cause of these structure fires? Lack of working smoke detectors. A little bit about a comparison about our neighbors. Teaneck is 6.24 square miles and about 2 square miles larger than our neighboring Hackensack, which is 4.9. The population of the city of Teaneck, 41,246. Population of the city of Hackensack, 45,736. The current size of the Teaneck Fire Department, 93, although staffed and short 7. The city of Hackensack, 107 firefighters. We have 4 battalion chiefs or tour commanders on duty. They have 4 deputy chiefs on duty. We have 1 captain and 4 lieutenants per shift. They have 2 captains, 4 lieutenants per shift. We run 3 engine companies. They run 4 engine companies. We each run one ladder company. They run a rescue company. We average, if we're staffed, 18 to 19 per shift. They run 25 per shift. In addition to that, they have some additional staffing functions. We do have a battalion chief in training. They have a captain. They have a public information officer. We both have administrative chiefs. Of course, we both have chiefs. Their fire prevention bureau, they're stepped with a deputy chief, a fire subcode lieutenant, which Teaneck used to have, which is now a civilian in the building department, and they have 4 other inspectors. In my fire prevention bureau, I have 1 fire official and 2 lieutenants. At one point, there was the fire subcode official and another inspector in that position. Of course, they have a beautiful mechanic shop with 2 mechanics to work on their apparatus 24/7. we have to rely on the poor DPW struggling out of Quonset huts and other buildings. The FD salary is a little over 10 million. Their salary is 14 million. Our other expenses, roughly our operating budget, 411. They have 373, but they also have 743,000 in fire prevention budget, another 23,000 in fire prevention other expenses. Their dispatching, which is 1,137,000, and other dispatching costs of 12,000. All our expenses roll into our actual budget. So just a little comparison about the city of Teaneck and Hackensack. That being said, if we're going to keep Teaneck residents safe, we require 4 stations staffed 24/7, 365, adequate staffing levels, strict code enforcement, advanced municipal alarm system, a progressive fire investigation program, proactive fire prevention teams, carbon monoxide and smoke detector programs for the homes, proper fire equipment, modern apparatus, and no obsolete fire stations. Again, I want to thank you all for your hard work, dedication, and continued support to the Teaneck Fire Department. If we can go to your budget.
Thank you, Chief. Yes, turning to page 86 for the council, if you'd like to follow along, sub-account 244, communications maintenance has gone up 43.97%. Chief, if you could just go through what that increase was for.
What, manager, what number was that again?
Sub-account 244, communications maintenance.
Okay, sub-account 244, radio maintenance contract. That is our annual expense to Goosetown. In that is it additional repairs for the next line item, repairs to portable mobile radios and our radio system at fire headquarters, which although we are dispatched from Hackensack, still gets utilized by Hackensack. Alarm system replacement wire, that's the game wall box system in town. And then a millennial fiber repair request, which was not funded the past year. And that's to ensure that the fiber run from Teaneck Fire Headquarters to Hackensack Fire Headquarters, which is how all the equipment gets to Hackensack, as opposed to duplicating it there, is maintained and run.
Thank you, Chief. Sub-account 246 is our shared dispatch services. I don't know if, Chief, you want to add anything in. There is a 100% increase there, but for the reasons I had said previously, did you want to add anything, Chief?
So as you know, currently dispatching all the functions of the Teaneck Fire Department being handled by the city of Hackensack. We do share some of the costs on our ends with our computer records management system, which is a previous budget item of about $21,000. If you look in sub-account 2013, that's our CAD and records management system. That goes up about $1,000 or close to $1,000 every year. We need to maintain that in order to have that records and dispatch done by Hackensack. In addition to that, the 250 is for them to cover the cost of them actually operating the dispatch center in Hackensack, answering the calls. So far since October, it's been working very well and has allowed us, the extra firefighter that used to work 24/7 in the firehouse, cleaning toilets and stuff like that, to now at least get on the fire apparatus and increase our staffing on a short-term basis.
Great, thank you. Also, we have sub-account 260 under training. That's up 61.33%, or $11,100. Chief, can you explain the increase in training that you have added to the budget?
Okay, regarding training, so over the years, the Teaneck Fire Department takes a lot of training upon itself. We send our members away to school to bring them back in to do some in-house training. Due to legal requirements and other requirements, we've sent more firefighters away for that type of training and bringing it back. But also with the influx of officers and the changing of the upper management level, we've had to bring in outside chiefs and or other experts to give our firefighters some extra level training, especially the officer level development. We have tried to use our JIF for some of that training, which is free, which is very beneficial, but they have not been able to cover some of the basic command and maintenance programs that we need to afford. Also, we have never been really accredited as far as SOPs, SOGs, rules and regulations. So if you see item number 2, the Lexipol accreditation program, That's the program to try to get our SOPs compliant and legally in line to reduce any type of liability for the township.
Great, thank you. Council, do you have any questions for Chief?
A few things. First of all, the comparison to Hackensack was off on many, many levels. For example, there are 4,000 additional residents. Many of them live in apartments. If you give me 4,000 more residents, figure 2,000 more apartments, 8 more Avalons, that would bring us $12 million. I think we could take a vote and give them 8 more firefighters. But I appreciate all the hard work that the fire department does 24/7. There's absolutely no doubt that a paid fire department is far safer than a volunteer fire department, especially in the light of the decline in volunteerism. That said, is there the thought, and I just came up with this as you mentioned the comparison to Hackensack, and you discussed, I believe you said that you have 4 battalion chiefs, you have 5 deputy chiefs and additional chiefs. The expression of too many chiefs, not enough Indians. Is there a talk about merging departments? I know we talked about moving the dispatch, but if all of a sudden we combine forces, and I understand that we're a little bit smaller than them, with Hackensack, the efficiencies of scale between the 2 towns, between 2 cities, would probably yield us quite a bit of savings, not as a return to the pockets of the residents, but more as an increase in safety to the residents. Any thoughts on that discussion with your fellow chiefs?
That's a great thought. It's always a question of chiefs that's well above both chiefs levels. That's at a council level to a council.
Okay, so Mr. Manager, I'll discuss that with you offline, and maybe we'll set something up to discuss that.
Absolutely. I think as a whole, I think we've been having open discussion about shared services across the board for different towns. So we'll continue conversations. Thank you.
I would suggest you might want to revisit North Hudson and the problems and concerns though that you might have with that.
I have a quick question. Earlier in your previous initial discussion, you mentioned about the use of potentially CCOs as something, certificate of continuing occupancy on transfers, and you had basically indicated that that's something that you would could see being borne by the seller when sellers are selling, that there'd be this on transfers, this inspection. Have you thought through what that would look like? And the second part of that question, would you have the personnel to do those types of inspections whenever a property turns over?
Well, currently our Fire Prevention Bureau does every home sale, smoke detector inspection. So that person would be doing that work already.
Mhm.
So it would actually be a benefit. You'd be collecting more money with very minimal, provided you did not change our fire prevention staffing.
And if you were to look at what that increase would be, or that fee could potentially be based upon other similar towns, have you done any types of research in terms of what that would look like?
Not as far as the fee structure. That I would say we'd have to discuss that offline, how much that's going to cost. We're already charging a fee for the smoke detector inspection.
Mhm.
I don't think it's going to be a big increase. However, you're doing 400 something home sales every year. So it would be a little bit more money back to the township.
Thank you.
Anyone else? No, we're good. Thank you, Chief.
In addition, just as far as grants go, we do apply every year for the American Rescue Grant, the Leary Grant, the Fire Subs Grant, the Sprinkler and Fire Safety Grant, 2 FEMA grants, the Safer Grant, and a Fire Prevention Grant. So we're always trying to work with grants. However, I would say that although Millennial is a nice company to work for, it still requires a firefighter or an officer in my department working countless hours to provide the documentation, the resource, and all the additional information to make that grant actually a pliable grant. So I don't necessarily think you get your bang for your buck with Millennial.
Thank you, Chief, for your input. Council, I also wanted to just comment, Chief Berchtold has been very instrumental in overseeing several projects that we have going on. Station 4 is hopefully due to open back up by May 1st. So he's been overseeing a lot of punch list items and getting that sorted for us, as well as us looking at headquarters roof, getting that repaired for fire headquarters and the apparatus floor in Station 2. So I want to just say thank you to Chief Berchtold for overseeing that and the professionalism and service that the whole fire department gives to our community. So thank you, Chief.
Madam Manager, I'm sorry. Chief, what was the year? Could you remind me that Station 4 shut down? Yeah.
Been about 3 years. Originally
Oh.
occurred during Sandy. When the roof blew up. We applied for immediate emergency funding to, want me to come back to the mic?
No, I'm okay. I mean, it's up to you, man. Yeah, I guess so.
Station 4. Station 4 originally started under Sandy when the roof blew off. It was an immediate remediation to try to get the roof patched back up, but there was also excessive water damage and mold that started to incur. Some OSHA violations then occurred on top of that. At the time, it was under Chief Verley, who then applied for FEMA money to do some upgrades to the station. At this time, we still do not know why that FEMA money never went where it went. We kicked the can down the road a little bit further. The station did need some upgrades. Eventually, it was sat down and discussed with the past manager to do some upgrades. It was supposed to be minimal upgrades. As they started doing renovations to the building, found some more. It was always recommended that they go back and readdress the roof issue, which then caused a longer delay and more costs to get the roof finally patched and fixed. So we are about 3 years into this renovation. Very painful.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now I'm going to switch over to legal services and costs. We have Scott Salmon on Zoom. It is page 40 under tab 5. Last year, we adopted 977,000 and spent $822,033.41. This year, I'm requesting council approval for the same amount of 977,000. Go ahead, Scott.
Scott Salmon, 818 Teaneck Road, lifelong Teaneck resident. I'm here to talk about backyard chickens, if that's okay with the council. As you guys know, I've been the township attorney since 2023. The law department handles every legal issue imaginable for the township, whether it's drafting ordinances and resolutions, reviewing contracts, advising on employee-related issues. We're involved in zoning questions, negotiating with vendors, and so on. We handle all the litigation the township is involved in, which includes about a dozen lawsuits, more than 20 workers' comp cases, over 100 active tax appeals, and so on. Despite all that activity, I am pleased to say that we were able to keep the budget flat this year after a decrease the previous year. And even though our budget decreased last year, we still came in under that budget by about 150,000, as you just heard, saving the township considerable amount of money. We are aware of how seriously the council takes this budget process and keeping taxes as low as reasonably possible. And so we are continuously looking at ways to become more efficient and provide you and the township with the same excellent legal services for less money. I think we are probably looking at another decrease next year. But we have some lawsuits that we expect to come to an end towards the end of this year, and so we want to reserve some money in the budget to take care of them, depending on how they wrap up. The only thing I want to say is I want to thank the council for the trust and the faith that you've placed in all of your legal professionals. The law is often a zero-sum game, which means that being a lawyer means that you are constantly at war with basically everyone all the time, including very often your own client. So it is very refreshing that this council constantly seeks our guidance, and then when we provide it, you listen and work with us and not against us. So we thank you, and we're happy with this year's budget. So happy to answer any questions.
I think he's done an excellent job with his budget the last few years. I know it, and I appreciate it.
Anyone else on council have any questions for Scott?
How you feeling?
I'm not quite sure which way is up or down, but other than that, pretty good.
I have a question, just a general budget question. So for these line items where we come under budget, have we already priced in the savings from 24 into the proposed budget for 25?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that one more time?
Very good question. So the question that I heard from Deputy Mayor G was, have we factored in the savings from the 24 budget into 25? The answer is no, and here's why. When funds are unused for a department, the budget cycle is open for 2 years. You have this year's budget, the current budget, and you have the appropriation reserve last year's budget. As Ms. Hashmat said last week, one of the ways that we are bringing in this budget lower than the original 15% that we had forecasted was canceling $1.5 million from appropriation reserve. I don't believe legal was one of them, but to answer your question, whatever wasn't used from legal or any other funds that we don't cancel will then on January 1st go into surplus. So that's how you build surplus, is not realizing your full revenues. So, sorry, is that confusing? Okay, so yeah, the way you build surplus, as we said in last week's PowerPoint, is if the hotel revenue is $1 million, you're legally allowed to realize $1 million, but I wouldn't recommend it. I would say do 900, because then that 100,000 will build your surplus in the next year. Let's say if you get $1,050,000 in revenue. Same thing with your appropriations from last year. You don't want to cancel too much because you also want that to go into surplus on January 1st. So January 1st is a beloved and sometimes despised date by me. Depends. But yes, I mean, it's always a good thing to come in under budget. It doesn't go to waste, during budget transfer season. If another department is a little bit shorter, everyone knows everyone's budget's fair game come November. And that's how we have to keep everyone's budget positive. If we end the year on March 31st in a negative somehow in an account, or if later in the year another department overspends their budget, you're legally obliged to raise that money in next year's budget. So it's very important that everyone's positive on 12/31.